Okay, it's time. Now I'm going to switch the recording, start recording, okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next issue of our business workshop. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Damir Slogar, founder of Big Blue Bubble, the company that produces mobile video games based in Canada. And I don't want to spend too much time introducing him. He will do it better than I can do. And so, Damir, the floor is yours. Everybody in the audience, please be free to jump in with your mic and ask any question you might want to. Just anything. Okay, Damir, please.
Okay, ready to start. So the subject today, extending the life expectancy of video games. Generally, a lot of this could be applied for a lot of digital products today, but I will focus on video games just because being something that I have a lot of experience with. And yeah, let's start right there. So a little bit about me. Damir Slogar, CEO and founder of Big Blue Bubble, video game development studio from Montreal, Canada. So I have about 35 plus years in the video game industry, work across a lot of different platforms on a lot of different medias, develop over 100 games, about 25 different platforms. So I can bet a lot of people will even struggle to count 25 plus platforms, but I just try to go before this through the list. It's actually much more than that. I didn't want to change this, but yeah, there's been a lot of gaming platforms in last 30 plus years. Back in the 90s, I hosted the video game TV show. After that, I was editor of video game magazine, so constantly being in this industry. And in 1999, I moved to Canada. Spent 4 years in the Digital Illusions, DICE, now part of Electronic Arts. And back in 2003, I started Big Blue Bubble, studio that I'm still today. So it's been 18 years I'm running this. And this year, it's been actually for me, so I sold the studio to EG7 Group. Just been announced actually finalizing of the deal a couple of weeks ago. So now we are part of a big public company in Sweden. The company acquired actually a couple of studios in Croatia. Multiple actually Swedish company acquire game studios in Croatia. So the Sweden's really becoming the a big power when it comes to video games, and now being part of this group will help us get to the next stage of growth. So that much about me. Let's focus now on the life expectancy. And one common question will be why do you want your video game products to have long shelf life? It's not necessarily obviously shelf today because we're talking about digital product, but is it really all the good idea to have the game to be alive for a very long time? If it's not, there's quite a few reasons actually why not. First of all, shorter shelf life means less cost of support of the game. It means you're getting back your money and investment quicker, so you can invest in new products and develop different projects. So all these things will kind of advise almost against having the very long life of the game. Second one is fidget spinner effect that you guys know, or you don't know. No one's talking about fidget spinners, but they were like a big thing a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, I didn't even know. So there's a lot of fads and things come to the market. They're very, very popular at one point, and then they just quickly disappear. So you don't want to risk being new fidget spinner when you have the hot new product that will be hit for one season, and then next year no one's going to talk about it. So because markets obviously shift and change, interest of your target demographics change a little bit as well. So again, if you want to avoid that, it may be better to run your game fast, maximize the revenues in the short term, and start something new. And third thing, there's quite a few, but those I would say the three most important ones: team motivation. So team developing the same product over and over. After a while, it's not going to have same motivation as developing something brand new and fresh, completely new setup idea. So working on the same projects, especially with the new generations that tend to switch the jobs, company much more often because they want to learn more and more experience. It's not the same. So yeah, it's not always great and necessarily good to have a long-lasting project. But why is good? First of all, as opposed to fidget spinner, you can easily avoid second album syndrome, and that's the known thing. You know, when you have the band release their not necessarily first album, but very, very successful one, what are really the chances they will have another hit of the same size? Looking historically, almost none, right? Most of the big bands will not necessarily fade away, but like you had one period of time when you've been very, very successful, and it's very hard to repeat this success. Very, very similar, almost identical things happening in the video games market, right? Most of the companies you will know, they will have one big hit, and very, very rarely they will have something that will surpass that. Second thing is you can get easier to untapped market. Typically, we develop a game for certain market. I'm talking right now more geographical one. In order to be successful at each of the markets, it's not very easy. It's not just a matter of marketing. Sometimes you need to know how certain markets, how certain culture works. And if you have a product, project or the game that's in the market for longer time, you have opportunity to research this. Maybe you were successful in one market, you want to expand, or in a different markets, you need to do some changes to the game. So it takes a while to learn all this and adjust it and relaunch. But that allows you longer life shelf, so speaking. Allows you to go to the more markets and be more successful in them. And third one, I would say this is the real opportunity to build the value in your brand, not just as a company, but as the product itself, right? The game that's been very, very successful and managed to sell in the first week millions of copies, but then 6 months after no one's playing and no one heard about it, it does have value as a brand for sure, but not the same one with someone who's going to play for 5 years and continuously generate revenues, expand the audience, and in both of these cases, if you're talking about the sequels or any kind of auxiliary product, it's much more likely that the more successful one that's been on the market for a longer time, because more people will recognize it. So I try to extract some key longevity factors. Those are factors you have to think about it when you start designing the game. Not every game that you design, you should be trying to design in the first place to be a very long standing product. And it really depends on so many factors how you want to approach it. So first one, let's talk about it. It's a business model. Business models in the video game industry evolved a lot. Since the late 70s and 80s, when you buy the games in specialty stores on a tape, later on floppy disks, when you pay one-time price, even then they experimented with different models like shareware, freeware, or demo version of the game. This evolved to big stores like Walmart and Target, like a big chains in the US that will stock the games as a typical shelf product with a premium purchase price that's currently in like $60 range, I would say. So this has still been the model that's very profitable today. But meanwhile, a lot of other models evolved from the subscription, from the premium, freemium advertising base. So there's a lot of business models. So when you establish the business model for your game today, if you imagine your game's going to be viable 10 years from now or even longer, think about it. Is this only business model that could work for your game? What is market change? What if the like you saw with a lot of games, they have subscription models. They have to at some point evolve and basically switch to the either free-to-play model or something else to survive, just because market evolved and people a new audience expect a different approach to the business model. Second thing, slightly ties to the business model is in-game economy. Something that has to be very, very thought through, especially in the free-to-play market, because in-game economy is something that will really dictate as well, like a lot of other factors that I'm mentioning, how long your product can survive on the market. Main reason being is you can create economy that will, so speaking, extract all the revenues from the user in a short amount of time. But at some point, you can run into areas when it's very hard to produce new content because people have abundance of in-game currency that they cannot spend, or it's very easy to get, or too hard to the certain point, so people would drop from the game. And again, economy that's designed to work in a game for a year or two, it's not the same economy that will make a game easily work 10 years from now. So one of the things that many games will do through the very long lifespan, they will actually involve economy, not necessarily change the fundamentals, but they will add additional currency and additional models to actually monetize. So it's very, very complex system that doesn't have to be fully developed from the start, but it has to be fully thought through more in the sense, okay, will I be able to involve my economy 5 years from now and things start changing or shifting? The next thing, super important one, is game team and cultural fit. So in order to be stay on the market for very long, you have to have the team that's somewhat universal, or being seen as something that will be interesting, I don't know, in this decade the same as the next decade, maybe not at exactly at the same level of interest, but definitely you have to capture the audience that have same type of interest, and also need to have cultural fit. So having any kind of cultural references in your team or the game, they're too much tied up to the certain era or years or something like that, could be detrimental to your ability to expand your game. So for example, if you're making games when it's going to make, I don't know, fun of certain group politics, I don't know, something that's live right now, right? That's probably not going to be as relevant 5 years from now, and you will still have to grow the game.
Sorry.
Yes?
We have one hand raised. Slajan, please.
Go ahead.
Go ahead and ask the question. Slajan. He raised his hand. No, he doesn't hear. Let me try provoke him. No, well then.
People type the question in the chat and you read it to me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but he just raised his hand, but now he's gone.
Maybe he has to go to the washroom or something like that.
Yeah, could be. So I'm sorry that I interrupted you. Please go on.
No problem. So we were a team and culture fit, obviously very, very important one. And finally, equally important, if not most important, is technology and platform you're developing your game for. So technology, it's a tough one because technology evolves and develops really quickly, especially in the gaming industry. Gaming industry really was one of the main drivers of technology, especially when it comes to video rendering and a lot of other similar types of text. So whatever you develop today, engine you will develop for your game today, it will be very hard to maintain, to continue development maybe 10 years from now, because technology will so much advance. And if your core technology is based on something that it's not easy to either transfer to a new technology or even to the new platform, right? PC is somewhat universal, but if you're making a game for PlayStation 4 today, how is this game going to work in 10 years, right? well, probably fine. I think people still play PlayStation 4, but regardless, you understand what I'm trying to say. It's really, really important to have a very good core base of your technology built, so it will be somehow transferable and adaptable to the upcoming tech. Also, your game and concept of games should not depend too much on technology itself. So that means visuals, any kind of VR and stuff, probably it's not something that will be very easy to move 10 years from now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I got disconnected last time from the internet. I wanted to ask, when you're trying to introduce your game to a specific location, country, group, like, I don't know, India, China, do you cooperate with sociologists, or I don't know, psychologists, and people from that know about that culture? And
well, absolutely, you do. Specifically, when you mention China and India, the further we are culturally from the country that you want to expand, the more help you need from the third parties that's going to be there. Obviously, you have to do your own research and see why some products are successful in those countries, why some products are not. Try to adapt, but also definitely try to get help. China is a good example that you can't even go without the third-party help, right? Because the government now requires approval for any game to be launched in China. You have to wait for over a year now on average to get this permit. So we really need a big player to support you in this market. Second one, and we learned from some of our products, it's culturally, we are so much different, not just in the area that are obvious, but in a lot of areas they're not very obvious. And when you're talking about technology and everything behind it, yeah, that's the main thing, something that's not very obvious and tangible, but it's still the case. When we brought one of our games, I'm going to talk later on there, we had huge success when it comes to the actual game in terms of exposure, getting millions and millions of players very easily, but we could not monetize the game because concept of our games did not have competing aspect. And China specifically and their culture, they're very, very competitive when it comes to monetization. You have to have something that you're going to showcase to other players that, okay, I'm better than you. I have something you don't have in this game. And this competitive aspect is huge. So that's why that was not successful for us, even though we did have a third-party help that helped with culturalization, changing of the characters. You know, like there's government rules and regulations. You can't have skeletons, for example, in China. There's a lot of these things you need to know, and really having the partners in a lot of these areas will be almost a must if you want to go with a big project there.
thank you.
Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, so and the last one, kind of tied up to this question to a certain extent, is content pipeline. In order to have a game that's going to last for a long time, you have to plan how I'm going to develop the new content and constantly update the game for next 2, 5, or 10 years. Here you have to find a very good balance. You have to create good quality and a lot of content, but also this content has to be, in order to be really good, it's very hard to make it cheap, right? So you can't just change the colors of the outfit on the characters and all of a sudden user's going to just buy this, okay, this is the new character. No, you really have to create, constantly create something new. But if your content pipeline development is very expensive, maybe amount of users you're going to keep gaining per year or per month is not going to be enough financially to support development of that amount of content. So you have to strike some really good balance that you don't know at the beginning when you're launching the game, but through the development you will see that as long as it's something you keep in mind, I think you can do well with this. So I brought a couple of examples of the game that's been on the market for a very, very long time. Starting with this three, they both started in, all three of them started in 2003 or 2004. Maple Story by Nexon, EVE Online, and World of Warcraft. They both have a combination of in-app purchases, of subscription, different business models. They're both completely different world and different way how you play them, but they'll be very successful. Obviously, they're not today where they used to be in their peak, but just continuously being on the market for almost 20 years, it's obviously a huge success for them. They all managed to make the brands for themselves. They granted a lot of content updates. They still have a very good player base, and they're still generating revenues. Another one I want to mention is EverQuest, specifically because our parent company G7 just bought the Daybreak studio that made EverQuest. So I will probably be down the road involved with this project again. EverQuest is by far the oldest MMO. So it was launched back in 1999. They still have an active player base. They love the game. They're playing it every day for 21 years. So it just shows you that it is really possible to have this very long-lasting franchises. Like I said, all of them being very known, very big brands, and very successful. Then I'm going to bring the three semi-random, I would call them, examples from the mobile games, because that's the space that I've been active with Big Blue Bubble in the last 10 years at least. And those were, all three of them are kind of our competitors for our game in the mobile market. And I will share later on a little bit about how we did comparing to them, what we did better. So we kind of outlasted all these three games, even though at their peak, I think each one of them has been more successful than our game. Again, they did last it for a very long time. Two of them are based on the brands. One is Smurfs, the second one is Simpsons. Simpsons also been licensed, a property that's been on a market for a very, very long time. So it was not a big surprise. Smurfs, on the other hand, they've been a very big surprise in terms of how successful this game was, considering in the moment when it launched, the Smurfs were not as active or hot license as you would call it. I think they launched sometimes around 2010, maybe 2009, something like that. They're all still alive. They have a user base, but not even close to their glory days, so to speaking. Again, examples, they're really good examples of the free-to-play games that can stay on the market for a very long time and generate revenues. So for key study for today, I decided to pick our game that's been our most successful title to date, and it still is, called My Singing Monsters. So we'll share some of the key elements that made this game stay on the market for so long and being successful for so long. But first, a little bit about the game. So it launched back in 2012 on iOS and Android platform. So it's been on the market now for 8 years. We have way over 100 million installs and generate over $100 million in revenues. And even those data are from 2 years ago, so those numbers are much higher today. We generate about 1 billion YouTube views for different videos related to My Singing Monsters. I will talk more about the social media and everything later on, but just showing you how big exposure this game got on this just one social media channel. Another interesting thing is for the last 24 months, this game has constant growth of both revenues and users. Again, this is not a peak that we had, I would say, back in 2015 or 16. Again, we did manage after a dip to return back, continue to effectively develop and market this game, keep it on the market, and we are now again in the growth phase of something that's been on the market for 8 years. Not a very common thing in the mobile gaming industry for sure.
Sorry,
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
We have another hand raised again from Slajan, please.
I'm sorry, when my Wi-Fi crashed, I switched to mobile phone, so it probably is some bug. Sorry.
Okay, don't worry. Okay.
Okay.
I was going to ask about this slide. Why did you have only 18 YouTube views, but now I see it's 1 billion?
18 is not that bad for start, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, sorry.
So extensive growth outside of the game, that's another thing that helped growth of the game itself, but also once you have successful digital product, there's a lot of other areas you can experience the growth. Again, I will talk a little about this in upcoming slides. So this is one of these slides, growth areas outside of the game. So one of the coolest things we had so far with this is this toy line that we managed to sign with a partner, Play Monster in the US. So they developed series of toys. They're interactive, so basically amazing how they work. So they recreated our monsters from the game with the super high quality of the toys. We were actually nominated last year for the Toy of the Year award. No, that was this year. So toys work in a similar way as the game. So as you buy one toy, it will play the tune. If you buy the second one, put it next to each other, they will actually play the tunes together in tune. So they will synchronize themselves through infrared. So there's a lot of technology inside of that. Again, it's been very, very successful for us from this perspective. Obviously, help us bring new players to the game and expand it to the new markets. We did a lot of plushie toys with a lot of partners. Started with Amazon, and then signed a couple of new partners in the licensing show a few years back. Everything else that goes with this, from apparel. We launched a series of book with Egmont in UK that, again, great quality of the products they develop. So all these things kind of help us raise the brand. We even released a record with the soundtrack from the game, played by Philharmonic Orchestra. So a lot of elements. And then finally, we are for quite a while now in pre-production phase of the TV series called Those Singing Monsters, based on my Singing Monsters brand. So there's a lot of these things and growth of the brand that's happening right now outside of the game. And another thing that's very unusual, and it's not obviously very common, is that actually the game will expand into different areas versus vice versa. Typically, you will see brands want to develop their game based on a brand that exists from either TV show or some kind of toy or something like that. Us going in totally opposite direction is really, really cool things. And like I said, not very usual. Angry Birds did it obviously very, very successfully. So what are some differentiating factors that we had with our game compared to our direct competitors on the market? What made our game being still vibrant and alive after 8+ years versus a lot of them that kind of toned down? Either they're not on the market anymore or they have minimum number of players. The number one thing, if you look at this image, this is, I would say, probably about 70 to 80% of the monsters that we currently have. They're all on this image. So the number one thing is by far the content. So the quality of the content, it has to be really unique. It has to be something that no one else did. And I'm not talking about like singing monsters. I'm talking about just how visually they look, how engaging those monsters are, how much imagination and creativity is behind them. Not just a creation of the monster itself, but the way how they sing, how they synchronize with everything, how they move, all their background story, all these things have to be unique and interesting. Rich, meaning like I just mentioned, like each monster have a history, has the diet, has the things they like, who they want to hang out with, you know, which islands they're going to play it on. They have to be memorable, and that comes from both music and the visuals of the game. So they have to produce the tune that is really catchy, that people will sing. Shareable, that means you create something in a game or playing the game that you want to share with your friends and show them what you did. That actually is a big contributor to this 1 billion or 18 views, as Uber like to call it, on YouTube. A lot of these views did not come from videos that we created internally, but videos that they created with our user base. Especially every once in a while, you will find someone big or famous who will create a video, involve their kids. We have Jack Black. We did a partnership with a couple of bands. So there's a lot of people who will share this, bring new users to the game, but also obviously keep the brand alive. And obviously we have to have abundance of content. That means new monsters have to constantly be created, new content, new island. They have to be interesting, so you have to add in new features and stuff. So, but returning back to the key point, that content is absolutely #1 thing and most important factor that differentiates us from a lot of these other games that I mentioned. This free, like I said, for examples, in Smurfs, you already know who is in the Smurf village. I hope you do. And you can't really add additional 50 Smurfs that will be unique, right? Because everything is in the constraints of the license. Similar things happening with Simpson and then everything else. Dragonvale has this really cute dragons, but they're all dragons and that's about it. So eventually they become a new dragon that will have different color wings, right? You cannot easily expand this in a creative way to keep the users engaged as we did. Number 2, KPIs, key performance indicator of our game. So those are things that are typically measured for all free-to-play games in order to assess or compare how the game is doing. So this is how we're doing in relation to our competitors. 1, 7, and 30 days retention, that means how many people will return back after they open the game for the first time to our game after 1 day, after 7 days, and after 30 days. So what we found out from our comparison to our competitors, we are really on par with this. We're not much better or worse. Some of them are a little bit better, some of them have a little bit worse, but we are about in the same range. And this range is, just to be clear, about 40, 20, 10. That means 40% of the users will return after 24 hours, 20% of the users will return after 7 days, and 10% of the users will return after 30 days. So that's considered being good retention. And that's what kind of, I'll call it industry standard if you want to have a successful game.
A question.
Long-term retention, yeah.
Question from the audience. Who is in charge of creating new characters? How many people are involved in that process? From Ivan Linardic.
Sure. I'm trying to extract, just creation of the new character is just a portion of it. Currently, the team size working on My Singing Monsters and expansion of the main game, it's about 20 people. That includes the artists that will create the new characters, musicians that will create the new songs, because these two things have to work in tandem. You cannot really just create on your own the character. You have to see how it fits the theme of the island that we will create, how it fits the elements, because we have whole breeding charts, how you're creating new monsters. So there's a lot of rules and regulations, how they fit the lore of the game. And then finally, what kind of instrument/tune they're going to sing in order to be in sync and counterbalance of the other existing monsters. So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made there. So there's a fairly large group of the people doing that. It's not just our team. And partially this is tied up then with a user support team that gets feedback from the users, and our business intelligence team that also gets feedback from the users. But the difference between these two teams, one of them is getting feedback from the users that we're getting back through emails or communications when people telling us, oh, we want ABC. And then when comparing this with user behavior in the game with our business intelligence measures, and we're seeing that these two things are not the same. Interesting paradigm, because typically people will tell you, oh, we want something completely new, never seen before. But when you analyze their behavior, that's not what they want. They want more or less something they can recognize, a little bit innovation for sure, but it's quite different. But anyway, all these groups together kind of participate in creating the new monster. So it's not someone can come up, okay, I have an idea for this monster, let's put it in. Maybe you can have the general idea, but it has to be kind of not necessarily approved, but reviewed by the whole team to see if all the parameters for this particular monster fits in what we're going to do next. So it is fairly extensive and complex operation, but again, we're working on this for 9-10 years now. Actually, we started development on this in 2010. So obviously, after a couple of years, you really have this process nailed down. Hopefully that helps.
So how much time does it take to make a new character on average?
let's say that this team, new character is hard to pinpoint one because sometimes you have to wait for other elements. It's not just character, what he's going to like, some decorations. I would say one island, so that includes whole island that will have, let's say, 12 new monsters. Will take about 3 to 6 months to make.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, next thing, as you can see that I'm measuring, this is long-term retention. So this is how many people will return to the game after 90 days. This is where we excel and where our numbers are better than our competitors. So we do have a lot of these users that will stay with us for a long time, and typically that's going to be for years or even longer. Help us capture the new generation of the players. So we would have players starting playing with us as older teenagers, and today they already have kids and they're introducing their kids to the new game. So long-term retention is obviously super important thing for us. Next thing that's very high for us compared to our competitors, and this is conversion. Conversion means how many users, because our game is free to play, how many users that will play our game will actually decide to purchase something in a game. And this is where we're doing very well, because we will have about 5 to 6% of the users will do some purchase. Then let's call it industry standard, maybe not industry standard, but definitely standards in our genre and type of game is a bit between 2 to 2.5% conversion. So we are doing much better there. One thing that we're doing much worse, I wouldn't say not necessarily on purpose, but combination of all of the other factors contributed to this. Our revenue per user and this average revenue per user and average revenue per paying user is much lower than our competitors. That means someone will decide to make the purchase, but this purchase will be typically 99 cents, maybe $4.99, versus a lot of other competitive games will have very expensive packs that will focus on and try to push this to the player. So player will spend a lot of money early on in the game. We'll see a lot, but they will be at some point overwhelmed, and they're not going to stay in the game as long. So that's why we have higher conversion, because you're getting more for less money, but ultimately per user they are spending less. There's another reason why this is not a huge issue for us. Obviously, we would like every number to be better and higher. I'll explain a little bit later why this is not a big problem. And last one, super important, and it's unbelievable how important it is, and it kind of ties up to the previous in this monetization, revenue per user, and this is the star rating that you're getting in a store. Some games will have average rating. We have over 1 million reviews, so that's another thing that adds a lot. So over 1 million people will rate our game. So when you look at deciding, are you going to download our game? And if you look into this review, if you see we have 4.6 out of 5 stars, first of all, we're seeing very high score. Second, we're seeing over 1 million people thought that, right? If someone has 4.6 but 20 reviews, obviously it doesn't have the same relevancy, and I'm not going to have same confidence. This is really a good game that I want to play. So all these things really.
Excuse me.
Yes.
In your case, would you say that long run is more profitable? Okay, lower money transactions during a long period of time, but you have bigger costs than one-hit wonders. You played for a few months, try to get the money as soon as possible, and if it dies, the game dies.
And another one, please, from Luca Sheremet. If there were 20 artists, how many people were involved in development of My Singing Monsters in general? So there are 2 questions, please.
Okay, I'll start with the first one in terms of more focusing on getting the revenues back quickly versus prolonging the lifespan. Getting back a little bit to the beginning of this presentation, there's differences in what's your ultimate goal. If your ultimate goal is generating revenue, get the money back, develop new product, then you really want a monetization as early on because you are right, it will be a little bit cheaper to keep the user for a shorter period of time and getting to spend the money. But you're losing all the other additional opportunities of that. You devalued in your brand because it's not going to last long. All these other things I mentioned before, toy line, TV show, everything else, you won't be able to do this with a game that's on the market for a year, right? So you're building something that will generate revenues, but in a very, very long run, because we believe this game is now about 9 years old. This game is going to be on the market with all their product for another 10 years. This is not going to happen with many other games that might have generate more revenues. I will show this in some charts in the following slides. So it's really what your goal is to achieve, right? If you want to get your money back as quickly as possible, getting in a slightly higher risk, but you're going to get the money faster, or you want to really build the brand, something that's going to be recognizable to the next generation of the gamers, then you can constantly develop new games because people will recognize your brand. And the second one is related to the artists and the team. So the team is not necessarily 20 artists, 20 people. Not all of them are artists. Like I said, some of them are musicians, some of them are programmers because they still have to develop the new features and stuff. And also this game's constantly been in development. Even when we launched it, it was not completely done, but not even close where it is today in terms of content and features. So I would say close to 100 people work on this game through the lifespan of the game. Almost everyone in our company at some point work on this product. Maybe not the people that joined us in the last 2 years, but before that, yeah, the whole studio was at some point involved in this game. Hopefully that kind of captures both of these questions. So I'll go to the next slide, number 3. Things number 3, and this is the chart I was just mentioning. So on the y-axis, I put some number of players. Let's say this is millions of players, or this is millions of dollars. Doesn't really matter. It's something that shows success of this game. And on the bottom axis, there will be years that game is on the market. And you will see typical free-to-play game on mobile market is something that you see in blue, right? After the second or third year, the game will peak, and after that will start declining. And I showed here at the year 6 or 7. Typically, a lot of these games go to die. They'll be typically taken over by the smaller studio. They have a lower development cost. They can kind of still make money on it. They don't have to generate a lot of new content. They don't have to generate good quality content because they always have this hardcore fans that will never leave this game, whatever you do, right? So this is how the typical game works. This is the blue chart, the blue line. The red line is what we did with My City Monsters, for example. So we also peaked about the same time, around our 4th year, not as high as some of our competitors. And then when we start seeing decline, we heavily starting invested in year 6 and 7 in a game. We passed this breaking point, and now again our game is on a growth phase in both revenues and users. We started getting all this accelerated deals. This is focusing this chart only obviously on the game itself, but we managed to get out of this declining curve and started turning back. This doesn't even include all those additional products that we'll talk about. So everything that I mentioned before in this KPI slide, it's kind of reflected here in a way how our game and a lot of other games that will be have this long tail. This is how they're going to work out.
Hello.
Yes.
Another question from the audience. How often do you release some new content in My Singing Monsters from Filip Kusetic?
Very often. So typically once per quarter we release something really big. So for example, last week we first time introduced player versus players music dance competitions in a game. That's really big update. And every month we will release something that will be one unique monster or some new feature that's not as major. So on a quarterly and a monthly basis, roughly, we will do updates of the content. Meanwhile, there's a lot of things that are kind of predefined. They're season-based. One of the things is events like right now we just have Thanksgiving season when we have special turkey monsters. Like during the Easter we'll have Easter Blabbit monster that's kind of themed. Then we have during the Christmas season we have monsters that are Christmas themed. They're only available during the season, so that first of all increases retention because player will return back in the winter because this is the only time when you can get this monster, right? Otherwise you have to wait through the whole year. So there's a lot of this content things that are kind of getting repeated, and so you don't have everything available all the time. And like I said, on the top of that, you have this monthly and quarterly content releases. Okay, I will move to slide number 4, and this is user acquisition. So when I mentioned this thing before about monetization and why our revenue per user are lower and it's not a big deal, and I will explain it here. Paid user acquisition for our game is highly reliant on organic factor. What that means? A lot of games, especially games that are more geared towards core audience, like RPGs, action games and stuff, their formula for success is very simple. You acquire a user, that means you pay someone by advertising to bring you this player in the game, and now you have to monetize this user to get at least the amount of money that you pay for this user, right, in order to be profitable. So typically, let's say it will cost you about $3 to bring one user to the game, so you need to somehow get $3 back per user. That's super hard to do, especially if the user is someone who came to the game that's free, right, doesn't have to spend anything. So they will have to generate a lot of money from the users they're actually paying for it in order to, on average, have $3 back. So for us, first of all, our users are much cheaper to get because the game is much more broader audience, geared towards a much broader audience. But even more important thing is our organic factor. Organic factor means for every user I paid to someone to bring me to the game, he will bring his friend or a couple of other users. Typically, games will bring for every paid user, additional user that will be free. In our case, our organic factor is really high. So for every paid user, we'll bring 4 or 5 different users. So if I have to pay $2 per user to get in the game, basically I don't have to get back per user more than 50 cents, just because for each one acquired, I'll get quite a few that will come organically to the game. Each one, if it brings 50 cents, right, altogether, I'll already make my money back. Obviously, a paid user acquisition is not only way to get users to the game, but it is one of the key things on a free-to-play market, not just in mobile, but everywhere. So that's something that helps us kind of work positively even with this lower cost. And another thing I just mentioned is like, yeah, there's really no demographic target for us. Everyone is playing our game, from kids, from adults, from seniors, from teenagers. Like, it's really, really broad spectrum. And our business intelligence team goes in, doing analytics and see who is actually majority of our user base. We can't really tell you because it's almost evenly split across all demographics, male, female, all the age groups. We have obviously a different value of the user per different market, but other than that, demographic-wise, they are about equal. So it's easy to advertise. And I think that's our strategy. It's a business strategy always been for our studio. One of the reasons being because it was privately funded. We never get any third-party funding. Everything was a kind of bootstrap, so we were really cautious about where we're spending our money. So every time we will, for all our advertising and user acquisition, we won't have budget. Big company will have budget. Okay, this month we're going to spend, I don't know, $5 million in user acquisition. For us, formula is very simple. We will spend unlimited amount of money as long as we can buy users that will return back at least 1.1 or 110% of the purchase price, right? So we know we are positive. So that's why I'm saying opportunity, because not always you have enough users that you can buy for a certain price. Closer to Christmas season, it's not easy to buy users because everyone's advertising much more during the Christmas, so prices are going up. So we're not going to spend as much money. Every time there's opportunity, when there's a new source of users, recently, for example, last year or so, very big thing for us been TikTok. We managed to acquire a lot of users from their network for really, really good price. So that was an opportunity for us to put investment into there and buy users there. So like a little bit different, more pragmatic way of deciding on what to spend, again, giving us edge in this area. And the last one, number 5, is the goodwill that we're creating. And this encompasses quite a few things. Like I said, high organic factor that's driven by genre gameplay, something that's really approachable to everyone. So we don't have the users that you can say, okay, you know what, this is not the game I'm going to play or like. A lot of people will say that when they see first videos, but when they start playing it, change their mind. They might not stay and play the game, but they will never say, okay, this is the game I really dislike. So this really broad appeal. Then customer support team. They're upfront with all their users, communicating with them daily, getting back the feedback, what they like, what they don't like, responding back to their problems, resolving their issues. They have to be like really fast and efficient there in order to build this goodwill, make sure that people return back. You probably all heard the story, you know, retained customers worth much more than new customer, and this is really true. Every positive experience getting from our user support team actually creates user that will be retained for a very, very long time. Next thing is complementary apps. The next slide will show a little bit more of that. And the events that we talked about, this is the thing that's happening during the specific time of the year. Like I said, Christmas, Easter, spring break. So every quarter we have 2 or 3 events that will happen, and we can create something exciting around the game. So a little bit more about complementary apps. We developed multiple other apps based on My Singing Monsters brand. The core purpose for all of them was actually just to bring more publicity to the main game. First one is official guide that will explain you how to play the game, because the game is now really, really complex in terms of what you can do, how much the content you have. You can imagine if the game that's actively been worked on for 8 years, it has to have a lot of stuff in it. Not just content, but just how everything works. So our official guide is a very comprehensive way to capture this. Then we have My Singing Monster Composer app, where you can compose your own music using the monster sound. That we put it out as a paid app, but it did amazingly well for us, not just in terms of sales, but in terms of input on social media. People will create a modern version of the song based on our monsters, share this on the social media, and that creates millions of views. Then we have a coloring book app, something for younger audience. Again, accelerated application. We did curriculum for the grade 1 to 3 and then 3 to 6 for musical education in elementary school across North America. We gave this away to kids for free, so we worked with this with the cheap teachers. Again, introducing kids at a young age to our brand and hopefully getting to the game at some point. And then finally, we have our app, My Singing Monsters Dawn of Fire. This is kind of semi-official sequel to original game that launched also a while ago, I think in 2015 or 16, not been as successful as My Singing Monsters, but there's a lot of things that we kind of testing in this Dawn of Fire app. If it's working well, then we bring this to the main game.
Hello.
Yes.
2 questions. It seems that you are flipping some slides, but we don't see your slides because you stopped sharing them.
Yes.
And meanwhile, I've got another question coming in from WhatsApp to my phone from Željko Markota. Okay. So he says, do you hear me? Damir?
Yes, I'm here.
You're here. Okay. He says there's seemingly a trend of consolidation in the industry. Given that fact, is it a sign of maturity of the branch, and what does it say? Looking from the outside, does the consolidation suggest that there are no new disruptive ideas in the branch. And what would you say that possible disruptors would be in the future? So it's a future-oriented question.
So the best answer will be, I don't know. If I know what's going to be like the new disruptive thing in the future, I will definitely go there. Obviously not easy, but as far as consolidation goes, and I think that, yeah, that's correct. And again, just emphasize the value of the brand and building value in the company. It's really building the brand. I remember talking with one of the largest studios in the world a couple of years back. So they had at that point 1,500 employees. Majority of their work was work for hire. So they would work on a lot of big brands, but they didn't really own everything, but they have expertise in a lot of areas. And we discussed valuation of the company, and they openly said, like, we think our value of our company is zero, literally, because you find a group of these people that can do this thing, but you can hire them from scratch, maybe build them and shape them in the way you want it, and it will cost you about the same. Because if you don't really own the brand that could create the value, that you don't have full creative control and economic control over it, you can't really be successful. And with consolidations, a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening, especially in the last year, kind of partially driven by COVID. Bringing back just tied up with this, like a company that acquired us, they never been to our studio. They never meet in person anyone. Everything was done through online meetings and stuff. But obviously having the known brand like Mexican Monsters helped tremendously. So everyone's consolidating, trying to grab the brands, because building the brand from scratch today is super hard. It's way easier to release another sequel of whatever it's already been known to the audience and start building something new. So the cost of starting the new brand today, it's like super high, because all the established names already captured a huge portion of the audience and helps them. Even when they want to build a brand, they know, because they can advertise to the millions of people they have on their existing game. So there'll be a big change of that. But keep in mind also with consolidation, what happened in every industry for that matter, right? At some point, a lot of these companies become too big. They cannot withhold the talent very easily, because people don't want to work for huge corporations, and help start new studios, new startup, and again, this flourishes the whole ecosystem, especially with the money being injected into the industry. So that's it.
Okay,
can you see slides now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the next one. Yeah. So a little bit about our social media. I think what we're doing on social media, how active we have to be. So there's a whole team, marketing team, that's really doing social media content. This is a couple of examples of like what we're doing, for example, on Instagram. Like on daily basis, we will create posts like that. We will kind of cross-mix the brand and stuff, so we can tag this different brand, bring new users and stuff. Just being creative about your content. So that, for people not familiar with it, this is each of these examples has one of our monsters done in the style of a certain movie or the game, whatever we want to target this. Then on YouTube and Twitch, every Friday we have live show that goes live, answer people's questions, presenting new content that's going to be in a game, new products we're making. So there's a lot of interaction between the users. That again brings hundreds of thousands of views every week to our channels. Another thing on Twitter and on Facebook, we're doing a lot of activities. Extra Life is a charity-based video game competition that we participate in every year. Recently, we did sweepstakes with Hard Rock Hotel when we sent a couple of families to vacation. Actually, to be honest, I'm not sure how this ended up, because they were supposed to go during the COVID to Mexico. I should probably check up on that. But anyway, just give you an example of how we can communicate and how we can have other brands participating in our game and vice versa, right? Get some cross promotion between the brands and expanding our audience. And then finally, everything that's built by the fans. This is an example of the birthday cake that someone did. And if you search Google Images or YouTube, you will see the tons of people making the products based on My Singing Monsters, especially the cakes are the big thing. And all these things getting shared and getting a lot of new audience of the game. So this community engagement is absolutely crucial for any digital product today, and obviously specifically for our game as well. So that's about it. So now it's up to you guys. Probably there's more questions, so I'm happy to answer whatever you have.
Okay, thank you very much. So questions, please. Slajan is raising his hand.
When your products get to certain value, how do you sell your product to the third party, like you sold your company?
But it's not the same. We will never sell our product to the third party, like period. Company is completely different. I can talk about this if you have specific questions, but product versus the company, I'm seeing it quite differently.
I agree, but I'm talking about your company's kind of like product. I meant in that sense, not like selling your game to another game company.
So the selling the company, again, like everything else we did, it was really driven by opportunity that happened at that point. Obviously, being a mature company, we've been in business for some 18 years, right? We have a lot of interest from other third party, but for a lot of companies that have been approaching us, we were not on the same page in a lot of areas. Mainly being because a lot of these companies that would acquire us, they're driven by VC funds, and they have different views of how the business should be run, you know, where the risk and rewards are. I'm seeing this as a, to be perfectly transparent, seeing this as they playing with someone else's money, right? So obviously we, myself have a little bit different perspective, you know, when you build something from scratch. So it was hard to find someone who will be on the same page. That's why it was such a pleasant surprise finding EG7 that not only we have philosophy that's very similar, but the main thing that I appreciate, and obviously all my employees, there's absolutely no impact on our business in terms of what we want to do. We continue doing projects we want, the way we want it, like any areas we want to go, we can explore. Everything they will be involved with is just helping us with things when we need help, or maybe sometimes on the marketing front or retail publishing or stuff like that, something we don't have in-house. Other than that, each studios they acquired work completely independent. And this is the business model, not just by EG7, but a couple of other companies that started this acquisition spree in the last couple of years. And I think it's a great thing for the market.
Okay, Slajan, is the answer okay with you?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Then we have another question from Tomislav Pavkovic. Are ads in a game a good idea because they generate some revenue but often reject users?
Yes, they are a good idea. So here's the reason why, and I can totally understand your question, because one of the things when we're hiring designers, and we were just in the process of hiring designer that we got recently for fill this position, but we did send a lot of tests, and one of the questions on our test was, what do you think about My Singing Monsters? What would you change in the game? And absolutely every single designer said, okay, you should remove the ads because you will have people staying longer in the game, they will spend more money, blah, blah, blah. Every single person had something in a similar vein of that. And to be perfectly honest, I would probably say the same thing, but statistics, fortunately or unfortunately, shows totally different picture. First of all, there is absolutely no difference in the monetization of the users, because we did obviously A/B testing, right? Between the users that were shown ad and they were not shown the ad. So monetization, there is no difference. Strangely enough, users that were shown the ad, they have shown longer retention. What the reason is for that, I don't really know, other than probably they're simply audience that we have, they're playing this free-to-play game, they're just accepting this as a given, right? You were used to seeing the ad and that's it. We're still giving the option to users to do the minimum in-app purchase and remove ads permanently if they want. So you have this option, but you know, as a player, okay, I'll be even forced to see the ads, or I can pay something to the developer to get rid of them. So it's not a barrier of entry or anything. It doesn't affect the KPIs. If anything, actually, it works better. And on top of that, obviously, we're monetizing through these ads. So even though it's counterintuitive, and if you ask everyone as well, and this goes back to the things I mentioned before, us getting feedback from user support versus our business intelligence, analyzing what users are doing, those are two different things. Same thing here. Everyone will tell you, okay, I hate ads, but people will play and watch ads.
Okay. Next question, please. Just a second, let me read them out. Luka Sheremet, would you say that market is oversaturated for new developers to succeed?
No, I don't think market is saturated. You can always succeed. It's just what are your chances really today? Obviously, it's lower than it was maybe for a certain platform that was 20, 30 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago. It is harder a bit, but keep in mind it's balanced with other stuff. Barrier to entry is way lower than it used to be, right? So you can really develop game with a relatively low budget right now. That it was not as easy and get to the platform, get in front of the audience than it was easy maybe 10 years ago. Again, like you said, you are right. There's much more competitors out there.
Okay, thank you. Another question, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have one question, if that's okay.
It's okay if you had two also.
Oh, okay, thank you. So, are you happy with how Foregone turned out, both the game itself and the revenue generated?
Well, that's a really relative question. Revenue generate, I am very happy, obviously, but main reason for that was a deal we did with Epic that helped us actually launch this game. So on the console side, I expected revenues and overall success to be slightly better, but there's some really good indications that happening like right now. We're just picking up today a big promotion from the platform holders on this. We are also very happy with the critical reception of this game that again did very well, even though it shows some kind of polarization between the users that really didn't like it and like it. Fortunately, much more people liked it than not. So overall, we are happy. We definitely make our money back. But some of the key things, like I said, still happening with the consoles, and obviously big thing will be our launch on Steam in March.
Yeah, so you partially answered my second question, which is I noticed that you first launched on Epic Games with a later release on Steam. And I noticed in general more people are doing that these days. Is that simply because Epic takes less money from the developers, or do they have some better deals, or what's up with that?
Yeah, it was just a simple business decision, and it worked out in the end. You will get probably better exposure on Steam, but as you all know, Epic is ready to pay for exclusivity, and that's ultimately worth it if you want to make sure that you make your money back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Next questions, please. Okay, is it somebody trying to say something? No? Okay, I always wanted to ask you, not always, but since the last time, to comment perhaps a little bit about the importance of dealing with the intellectual property rights when you started your business, when you develop new game, new products, whatever. So it seems to be pretty important. So if you can explain a little bit in more detail this.
Sure. There's several layers of that. So obviously, as you launch your game or something, you will kind of automatically get a copyright. Depends how deeply you believe in the success of your game and how long you think it's going to be on the market, especially if you're looking at potentially expanding in different markets. You have to start doing the trademark registration early on. We did this with My Singing Monsters. We trademarked a lot of different categories for that. It is kind of time-consuming process. Became actually more expensive because right now you cannot register trademark in US anymore without the actually lawyers there are located in US. Before you could have done online. Now this is not the case anymore. It becomes more and more problematic, not problematic, but like significant amount of work involved, not necessarily that much cost, but there's a lot of work if you want to register trademark outside of US and Canada. And sometimes you have to do it, for example, in China, in order to mass market, to produce any kind of toys or goods in China, in any of their major factories, you have to have a registered trademark in China. So when we did a deal with Amazon to start producing the first series of toys, even though they were done in Amazon factories owned by Amazon, we still need to have all this trademark and stuff registered in China separately. So there's a lot of work and research involved around that. Also, there's a lot of spam coming related to trademark, right? Once people see your registered trademark, you will get a lot of this kind of shady proposals to register trademark in our country for this and this, or someone threatening you with a trademark that's not really legit company and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things you have to filter. And like I said, a lot of work involved when you want to have proper protection of intellectual property. And on top of that, I don't know how much you know, but you have to actively protect your property, not just by registering trademark, but also by going after people selling or abusing your trademark. So we, on daily basis, we would send the cease and desist notices to different developers. They will use our IP to people that will sell products on Amazon, for example. They're using our brand and they're not licensed. So there's a lot of work. So we basically have to have a small team just working on that every day.
Okay, thanks. Another question from the audience, from Filip Kusetic. What percentage of your income came from the game, My Singing Monsters itself? And then I can append to that question, what percentage of your total income comes from the games and from the advertising? So this could be interesting.
Sure. So I can answer your question, and that's the only one I can answer. The other one I cannot answer because, as I mentioned in our pre-call, I'm part of the public company right now, so a lot of things I'm not allowed to disclose, but I can disclose in our game, roughly, I would say 70-30 is split between ad revenue and in-app purchase revenues for our free-to-play games.
So sorry, I didn't hear the figures.
Sure. So 30% of our revenues from our free-to-play games is coming from advertising, and about 70% is coming from in-app purchases.
Okay, thank you. Another question, please. The audience. There is another one, and it's a long one. Krešimir Kovačević. I admit that I don't have any solid data on this, but I'm fairly sure that there were many simple mobile games that, despite seeming to have low budget, mediocre at best, quality and unknown developers, still were able to afford a decent amount of ads. Do you know anything about these types of developers and games?
I'm not sure what you mean by afford different types of ads. Advertising budget, if you mean? If it's related to that, there is one thing I want to mention because it is fairly important. Kind of ties up with a couple of things I talked about it when it comes to me not having maybe same vision when it comes to business with a lot of big companies in our space, especially free to play, major companies funded by VC money. Here's the problem. When I'm doing user acquisition and basically paying for advertising, right? And it costs me $1, let's say, to bring user to the game. I have to get back from this user on average at least $1.10, right? A A lot of our competitors, especially big ones, will manage to overspend. So they will spend $5 per user, they will get $3 back per user. So they will constantly lose the money, but their perception will be, they will be on the top of the grossing charts, they will be top of the monetization charts. So perception is, okay, they are doing well. They will increase their funding, basically raise more money and more capital, continuously overpaying for marketing that for money they will never get back, or they will get back maybe the counting 5, 10 years from now. Meanwhile, they will get acquired, they will get run out of money, they will get out of business, but they are kind of creating negative impact on the whole ecosystem. So that's why I'm not surprised that you will see something in a game. I know the game, when we advertising in our game, there's another game, not direct competitor, but another core game. They will pay for every user that we will send to their game from our game $25. This is absolutely ridiculous. There's no way you can get $25 per user, per paying user for sure. You can get hundreds, if not thousands, but per user on average, you cannot get this money back. So there's a lot of things that they're just not logical, but in a moment when you have excess cash because you just raised the capital or funds, you have to spend them somehow. And today, everything in every company is valued based on number of users, regardless of the profit or the revenues. Less and less, I would say, in the last couple of years, but it's been like since 2013 to 2016, it's been this point that everyone was just valued from Facebook, from everyone, just based on number of users. No one really cared about revenues. So yeah, it's not impossible to see something that's a little bit illogical when it comes to spending and the budgets.
Okay, Krešimir had another addition to his previous question. He emphasized in-game ads, to be specific. So probably those ads that pop up when you play, or I don't know, I don't play games. So
so in-game ads, serving in-game ads, it's very sophisticated process today and very competitive process. There's a lot of companies that will help you serve the ads, but there's a lot of independent markets. They have something called automated bidding. So basically you're just saying, okay, I'm going to display the ad that's going to pay the most in this particular moment. And just to give people a rough idea of what the value of these ads are, typically one video you can get, let's say, 1 cent per one video that you're going to show to the user. That's, I would say, some ballpark, right? Sometimes someone want to spend a lot of money because they want to advertise their brand and build the user base quickly, so they will pay you more. Obviously, for other countries like China or a good part of Asia or Eastern Europe, you will get much less per video views, but I think it's a fair estimate to the range of 1 cent per 30-second video.
Okay, another question from Tomislav Pavkovic. Is there a difference between iOS and Android users when it comes to in-game spending?
Absolutely, it's a huge difference, yes. iOS users still spending significantly more on average than Android users. I would say roughly double. For what we're seeing, not just from our game, what we're seeing from other games as well. There's some specific hardcore games that will have on par or maybe even Android better. For the most part, iOS users are more valuable when it comes to spending.
How do you explain it?
Typically, iPhone users and iPhone as itself as device is tied up to the more purchasing power of the typical consumer that will own it.
Okay. Next question, please, from the audience. Okay, nobody's raising hands. So
can I ask one more question?
Of course, you can ask 3 more questions if you like.
Okay, thank you. So I've noticed lately that especially a lot of bigger mobile games have been doing sponsorships with content creators, for example, on YouTube or Twitch. Is that something you have done with My Singing Monsters, or do you have some insight in how successful that is for bringing new players into the game?
I do have some experience. First of all, if this is non-paid, I mean in both directions. So you're not paying content creator, they're not paying you. You're just cross-promoting to your own audience. I think that typically works well. if you have one side that's charging another side for something, and that's typically will be content creators, especially the bigger names, they're now represented by agents. Everything I saw so far, it just doesn't pan out to be worth doing it. So for whatever I saw, for any cost associated with any kind of influencer that will bring you something to the market, first of all, it's non-tangible what you're getting back, because there is no proper way to tracking uplift in the audience or spending of this audience or something, because there's no direct correlation with a lot of the social media posts and someone coming to your game. Obviously, you can draw certain conclusions on stuff like that, but typically there's no good way to justify your spending on that. So whoever tells you, okay, if I talk about your product and I'm an influencer on this and this channel, it's going to bring you X users to the game, you don't really know. Did they come from there? Did they spend enough? You can measure this if you don't have absolutely any other source of traffic, right? If your typical user number per day is very low, but no one who starts from zero will use influencer for start. But generally, it's something that's not tangible, not measurable, almost like TV ad, right? If you put the ad on TV and a TV station will tell you, okay, 2.5 million people saw your ad, how are you going to know if that's true or not?
So it's more of a preventive measure for bigger games rather than a necessary one.
Yeah, well, again, keep in mind, this is my opinion, this is my experience. Obviously, people are spending it, and brands are spending money advertising through influencers, again, for me, I cannot really do it until I have some kind of tangible way to evaluating this properly. Is this worth the money or not? Also, not to mention, a lot of time you can evaluate it after you spend the money already, and it's too late.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 2 more questions. How many iOS users do you have in comparison with Android ones, from Filip Kusetic?
Well, I don't know, to be honest. We have slightly more Android users than iOS. Maybe I would say 60-40, but that's my guess. I really don't know this for sure.
Okay. Krešimir Kovačević, what are your thoughts on the Apple versus Epic case?
They're kind of both right to a certain degree. I honestly think that Apple has better chances prevailing in the end. But also, I'm glad to see someone like Epic trying to do something to kind of disrupt the status quo. If that's the right way to do it or not, we will see.
Okay, Luka Sheremet, have you ever had any legal issues with other companies?
Well, every day. Yeah, nothing really major that will be really material or something like that. There will always have small disputes and stuff. A lot of time when you're doing a lot of advertising and stuff, you're using third party to measure how many users they send in, and so there sometimes will be discrepancy like that. But I have to say, there's like on the legal side, I can't really say that there's anything that will be even worth mentioning. No.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the audience, please. If not, I have one. What about GDPR? How does this influence your business? Do you like it?
No, I think it's terrible. It's terrible how it's not just written, it's terrible how it's understood by the community and by law agency or whoever was involved in creating this. And I would try not to, I'm not sure if I'm repeating this from the previous lecture. I think I maybe mentioned this. I will give you an example of how ridiculous the law is and requirements, especially for the European Union. So here's an example. According to the law, we have to give user their own data that we own about them. And if a user requests for us to delete completely their data, we have to do it. Generally, it seems fine, right? So, and we are fine with that. That's what we're doing. Problems are following. First of all, user data that we own There is nothing, absolutely nothing that's identifiable for this user. We don't even know who made the purchase. Apple and Google will handle this. Only thing we know, user with this ID made some purchase. We don't know who is this user, where it's coming from. We obviously tracking their history through the game, what they purchased, what they have on their islands, you know, how long they're in the game, but nothing that will identify them. Regardless of that, the law says, because if you have their ID as device ID, regardless of the fact you don't know anything about them, you're still obligated to give them their data back and delete the data if they're asking for. First of all, the data itself is meaningless. It's a bunch of binary numbers, but okay. So here's an example that exactly works like that. Someone contacted us and said, okay, I want you to give me tell me what you know about me, give me my data, and then I want you to delete it. So in order for us to do it, we need to have full personal identification of this user. He has to send us all his personal data, credit card data, everything. So now is the first time we actually do know everything about this user, even though we didn't before. Now we're going to delete his meaningless data that we have that doesn't have any personal information. But in order for his personal data he just gave us, including all this personal info, now we have to store this for another year, because if we get audited or something, we have to showcase this person actually used for this data. So it works exactly opposite of what is intended. And it's like I said, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, thank you.
So if you want your data deleted, just let me know. Send me all your personal info and I'll do it for you.
Thank you. Okay, another question from my side, if I may. How many games, historically speaking, did you produce, and how many of them are actually or did actually gain significant part of your incomes or profits or whatever?
That is an interesting question. So I think through Big Blue Bubble we developed about 120 games to date. I would say maybe. So
sorry, we are talking about like 17 or 18 years, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I would say 5 of them generate probably about 80 to 90% of the revenues for our company. So chances of having a hit is 1 in 10. Out of this 10, I would say 8 of them or 7 of them will lose money, 2 of them will break even or makes a little bit of money, and 1 of them will be big hit.
Okay. What is your favorite Big Blue Bubble game? Not necessarily in terms of sales, but in terms of your liking. What is, you know, the most interesting one for you to play?
Well, hard to pick, right? I would say our game that we launched back in 2009, it's called Burn the Rope. I really like that because I think it is still today one of the most unique and game ever made, because every game you see today, you can see some things taken from certain games from the past. This one is like extremely unique in approach, and like iPhone with his accelerometer was first device that can actually make a game like that playable. So yeah, if I have to say from the originality perspective, is Burn the Rope. Also another interesting thing for that, that was first game on iOS platform that generated 1 million downloads in 24 hours. Keep in mind this was before iPad was out or iPod was out. Actually no, iPod existed and iPhone 3G or 4, something like that at that point. We had 1 million downloads in 24 hours for this game.
Yeah, it's almost like David Attenborough, you know, getting, I don't know how many millions Instagram users.
When we sign up for it, yeah.
Okay, and can you describe Burn the Rope a little bit? I don't know if everybody knows what do you do in the game?
The concept is very simple. So on the screen of the phone, it will be drawn a piece of rope in random shapes. So what you have to do, touch part of the rope with your finger, and it will start the flame. And the rope will start burning, so it's up to you to maintain this flame. You will twist and turn the phone, so the obviously flame always burns up, like when you hold the match, right? And basically you have to play it, burn the whole rope with just twisting the phone and making sure that flame doesn't fizzle. So the concept is super simple. It was not impossible to do before, but how it's implemented and how it worked, and the fun factor was really, really great for that game.
Yeah, okay. And now when they make phones that are actually going to be flexible, you know, or bendable, or how would you adapt the game to that? Because now they're, you know, they're solid, they're flat, they, you know, so there'll be another dimension to deal with.
Yeah, well, I think the game will work really well with VR as well, because then you have this whole concept of how we can rotate things in 3D. But when you mentioned this, it was interesting. You know what? We would just assume everyone will get right away how the game works. But we totally forgot the kids today, they never play with matches, right? I think that we as a parents are overprotective, so we wouldn't allow them, right? And you can't even buy matches. I don't know if you can still buy them. So it's not something that's very common knowledge, how the actually flame behaves when it light a match. If you just hold it straight, eventually it will fizzle, right? You have to turn it upside down, and it's not very commonly known concept for the younger audience today. So that was a really strange thing to discover at some point.
Yeah, so you are an educator as well, obviously, which is a good idea to be. Okay, there are two more questions from the audience. From Luka Sheremet. How do you know if a game idea is worth spending money on?
You don't. So idea is really irrelevant until you have the fully playable concept that have some kind of visuals that are a little bit appealing. You do not know that.
Okay. Another question from Krešimir Kovačević. Has development for different platforms actually become more homogeneous, or is that an exaggeration? How much less difficult is to develop a multi-platform game or port an existing one compared to the past? How viable is it to hire a porting company for a game?
Well, majority of the games today are developed with either Unreal or Unity, right? So it's really porting. It's not a problem as it used to be in the past. It is very simple. So only difference today is really when you're designing game, if you have a lot of high-level technical requirements, if they require a lot of CPU power, you have to be careful when you're developing for Switch because it's significantly underpowered compared to other consoles. But that's about it. If you're using third-party technology today, it is very simple to do it. Yeah, that basically kind of killed whole industry at some point. There was a lot of these third-party porting studios that did a lot of this work. This becomes less and less relevant. Just worth mentioning, Wobby, unfortunately, it doesn't work very well for us because when we started developing My Singing Monsters, Unity was, I don't think it was even out there, right? So we developed based on our own tech, and we're still maintaining our own technology in order to continue development of this game, because porting it to Unity will be extremely tough and complex process, not just because amount of content we have to port. There's so many different languages used and different portions. A lot of people were in charge of this project through the years, so it will be almost impossible to port something out, just not commercially viable to do it. But if you start something today, the porting should not be a problem.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Teen Dinarina Mladic. Did you lose some good employees since they did not want to work on the same game for multiple years?
No, strangely enough, that was never a reason. We do shift people across the projects a lot. We also ask people what they want to work on. Sometimes it's really driven by availability and the talent, but we do have super high retention in our company. Our average tenure is about 7 years. That's unheard of in a gaming industry. So one of the reasons is your ability to work on different projects. Even if you work on the same project, there's a lot of different aspects you can be involved in. That was also my agenda when I started the company for the first time. Prior to that, I worked on a Battlefield franchise for a couple of years, and seeing people working on the same thing, menu for Battlefield for 2.5 years, you have to go crazy then, because you don't see really big difference than working in the gaming industry and working on the bank application, right? And you'll get paid better if you're working on a banking application. So we decided, okay, we're going to start a studio, work on a lot of smaller projects so people can quickly learn something new, work on different type of game on different platforms and stuff, and that brought a lot of excitement, and still does to the date.
Okay, thank you. The audience is warming up, so there are 3 questions in the queue currently. Tomislav Pavkovic, do you have experience with competitive games where spending money gives you advantage, so-called pay-to-win games? Does that reject users?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. It's a short answer. Andrea Gorup, do you personally come up with all of the ideas for your games, or do you consider ideas from your employees?
All our games are developed by our employees. Sometimes I will give a high-level idea of mainly defining the genre, platforms, and audience, what it is, but majority of the ideas are coming from our employees, yeah.
Okay, do people in company regularly play games you made from Antonio Celnichak?
Not that much. I think people are definitely not playing My Singing Monsters. We are really not that much target audience. They did play and they still play a lot of Forgone, for sure. Especially now becoming part of the big company, we will play for sure more, because now a lot of other studios that we are part of the same umbrella are playing our games, and vice versa, we playing their games. So the bigger the studio is, more games it's under the same umbrella. Obviously, that will happen more often.
Okay, another question, please, from the audience. No, at the moment, no. So perhaps it's a good moment to adjourn. I could come up with some more questions, but I won't. Let us leave something for the next time, whenever it comes. I hope it will be after the COVID situation, so that one day when you got here, you can visit us again in the faculty building. So thank you for this wonderful presentation and chat with our audience. Thank you also to you all from the audience, and that's all. I'm gonna stop recording right now, and that's it.
Okay, thank you everyone. We'll see you sometimes next year, hopefully.
So hopefully, yes. Okay, so we are now offline. Thanks again, everyone. See you on Friday. There will be a jolly interesting workshop thrown by some friends of mine from the Washington State University in Everett about what they do in what are the best practices in learning, in creating learning environment for their STEM students to make them as prepared for the world of work as possible. So please join us on Friday, and that's all from me. See you all later. Damir, thank you. There are some people here who might know each other still, so if anyone wants to say anything, we can switch to our language, basically. Although we also have some, still some people from the abroad, so perhaps we stay in English. Margit, you were